want to go back a little bit to Martin Luther King, because I think there's something that is always talked about in relation to him, which is the trajectory that he was moving towards. Because obviously, we talked a little bit about how much his position changed throughout the years, and obviously after his assassination, there's all of these discussions on where his ideology and where his kind of where his methods are going. So I think a lot of people quote him talking about democratic socialism, saying call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, but there must be a better distribution of wealth within this country for all of God's children. So Eljeer, what do you think? Do you think that Martin Luther King was a socialist?
There's a letter from Dr. King to, at the time, his girlfriend, Coretta Scott, that says basically, I'm more, to paraphrase, I'm more socialistic in my thinking than I am capitalistic in my thinking. And I think that's very important from the standpoint that Dr. King did read Karl Marx. He did read a lot of the uh, the ideas of the radical labor movement. Some of his greatest teachers, Dr. Benjamin Mays, Reinhold Niebuhr, A. Philip Randolph, they came out of either the radical Christian theology, liberation theology, or they were socialists, or they were progressives. And so, right from the very underpinning of King's political trajectory was socialistic ideas. But his ideas were not coming out of a Marxian understanding of history and the world. He didn't have a materialist, a dialectical materialist framework, although he understood that. It came out of the radical black church. It came out of a basic articulation of the historical Jesus and the social gospel. And so his radical Christian democratic socialism is really rooted in that, while at the same time he understood that the wheels of world history are really turned by ordinary working people, the poor and the oppressed. And so, as time went on, in his articulation of those ideas, when he talks about, as Quinn correctly stated, right, the Gilded Age, and particularly in his different manifestations, talking about the Vietnam War, as an example, it allowed him, his more radical features began to show itself, because at that historical moment, we needed a leadership to speak of that. And so that's the brilliance actually of Dr. King. But also, he is moved by the fact that the people's consciousness is also evolving and developing as well. When we think of the Poor People's Campaign, Dr. King had to be taught and basically tutored on the question of the existence of the role of the black family, particularly black women, black single mothers, welfare recipients. And so the Poor People's Campaign was also an education for him, as well as this black male minister who had certain level of privilege in the black community. And so what we understand as King, King is evolving, and what we see at the very end on April 3rd or April 4th, the day of his assassination, is that we see a King that I think this generation can learn greatly from, in the sense of campaigning, organizing, but even more importantly, how he understood socialist ideas and how that could speak to a new generation, that if we want to make our world anew, we must look towards those ideas and those methods of constructing a society that's based on peace, that's based on solidarity, that's based on freedom, and that's based on you and I coming together and producing a beautiful world.